So on to today's topic of oh mustard seed, oh mustard seed. We want to look at faith. A little thing called faith. And I wonder how many times in our last week did you think about having faith? Especially in the last couple of days with what happened over in Japan. Do we have faith that everything is really working out for the highest good or not? Because I can tell you, when you're in the middle of a disaster such as that, man, is it easy to give up on your faith. Very, very easy. And I've had in my life 2 experiences to be close to huge shakeups, disasters. The one, the bombing in Oklahoma City in '94 that killed 168 people. And also the tornado that hit Oklahoma City in 1999, the fastest recorded winds in history. 318 miles an hour, took out 10,000 homes and took 58 lives. So I've been close. I was 20 miles from that hurricane, or that tornado when it came through. And on that day in Oklahoma, 48 tornadoes touched down, just that one day. And I know that after something like that, when you see the destruction of 10,000 homes, buildings, businesses, church, every type of structure just torn apart, it's hard to have faith, as we talked about last week, that God is only good. And there's only goodness in this world, in this universe. It's really hard at that moment to exercise faith. And so how do we apply that to our lives at the moment is, how easy is it for us to have faith when everything's going really well? When things are good, our relationships are getting along, we haven't argued in a while. Whatever a while is. For some of you it's 2 hours. Some of you it's 15 minutes. I don't know what it is. We're able to pay our bills at the end of the month. Job's okay, you're getting along with everybody. Everything's going pretty good. Your family, you haven't heard for a while, so you're getting along pretty well with them. You know, all those things. And then that's the time that it's easy to have faith. Oh man, I believe. But then, when that family situation isn't going so good, that relationship isn't going so good, our kids aren't behaving so well, things aren't unfolding the way, then where's our faith go? Boy, is that easy at that time to go right out the door, isn't it? So that's what we want to look at today, is the importance of having faith. And the reason we want to look at it is because when we have faith, it's then that we are able to exercise our energy to move forward and perhaps through a difficult or unpleasant or unhealthy experience. As if you've been attending for any length of time here, especially since the beginning of the year, you know that our theme for the year is to be a vessel for transformation. And what we've done is we have combined the teachings of the 12-step program along with the teachings of New Thought. And we put them together to create a very dynamic and powerful process that can assist us in healing through any situation that may come before us in our life. And so we want to look at the 3rd step of A, which was what we focused on last week, which is to surrender. And as you just saw the picture there, and it's on the cover of your program, that surrender made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood God, is what we looked at last week. And I love the picture that Dre chose there on the cover. And can you put it back up for a moment on our screen here? Of the person standing on the cliff. That's surrender, baby. That's surrender. See, when we don't have faith, we're standing about 10 foot from the edge. And when we have a little bit of faith, we come over and we look over the edge, but then we back up. When we have faith, we walk right to the edge and we go, knowing that we will what? Be supported or lifted in the divine presence. And so today our focus is on the spiritual principle of a journey of faith or of faith. And so as we want to look and explore the topic of faith, in the teachings of metaphysics, faith would be very simply defined as a strong belief in God. That's it. Done. Get it 100%, and we don't need to go any further. We can have coffee and be out of here. But that really is as simple and as clear of a definition as I can put together. Is faith is defined as a strong belief in God. So where are we when we do an inventory, or when we measure, or when we size up? Where is our belief in God? And a lot of us think we have to have this really huge belief in order to have God work in our lives. But that's where the mustard seed comes in. Faith is the opposite of fear. Faith is having a belief in something without logical proof. Having faith in something that is without logical proof. And so sometimes faith is seen as a forerunner to trust. And how I would best define it is, if you're about to meet somebody for the first time for coffee, and you agree at the location that you're going to meet, faith is showing up knowing that they will be there. Now, where does trust come in? It means that if you meet that person every week for an extended period of time, and they're there every time, you then can trust that when they say they're going to be at coffee at certain location at 10 o'clock, they'll be there. So faith sometimes is seen as a forerunner to trust. Because that person that's on the cliff, do they not have to have, in a sense, trust that if they step over the edge, they'll be okay? So sometimes faith and trust are also seen as a synonym. But always, faith is something that's having a belief in the unseen. And when we showed up here on earth, each one of us, we came out of our mother's womb, we came in with a faith in the unseen. And what that unseen is that we would be loved by our parents. That was our faith in the unseen. And each one of us was born with that. And what our parents' job was to do was to foster that faith, to develop it, to nurture it, to enhance it, to continue to strengthen that faith. And I was reminded of this, when Liberty came in this morning, but she does that often to me at home, is that she'll just say, Dada, or Mama, and when she comes running to either one of us, she puts her arms out in total faith that we will what? Receive her in with love. Each one of you was born with that. And you see, faith applies in that relationship with Liberty in that at this moment in her life, it's never been broken by either one of us. And what our job is, between Crystal and I, is to continue to strengthen that faith that Liberty has in us for as long as possible. Because if we look back in our journey, when we entered into this world, at what point did we come running to someone, whether actually physically or emotionally, and they closed their arms to us? That's when our faith in this journey began to diminish or waver. And then what we often do when that journey in our faith begins to waver or diminish, then we begin to have to work on recovering it. But for the longest time, we don't know that it's been damaged. And so you know what? We end up living more isolated. And we grow up and through our teens and our early 20s and sometimes into full adulthood, feeling isolated because at some point our faith or trust in another's love was severed. True? And we're still looking to repair, in a sense, that severance. I don't know, that seemed to make sense in my head, because somehow I was going to tie in severance package with not money, I don't know, but I couldn't quite do it, so we'll just move right on. So faith has to do with belief. And faith is what brings together two powerful sources in this world. If we take the position that existence is in itself miraculous. I mean, have you ever thought what it really takes for you and I to be here? That alone is miraculous. And then indeed, there is a metaphysical relationship between nature, faith, and science. Neither science nor religion have ever completely answered the question, why is there something rather than nothing? Why is there? Why are we even here? I mean, think about it. A lot of planets out there don't have any life form that we can tell at this moment on it. So it's like, why are we here? Why? These are deep questions that often go months, maybe in our mind, never even contemplating for a moment or two. Why do we exist? Why are we here? Why are we doing this thing together that we kind of call life? Science has theories and hypotheses, and religion has faith. Between the two exists nature. When we analyze the cosmos using equations, we come up with mind-boggling entities that are unsolvable. Einstein agreed that no one had the capacity to solve his quadruple equation. And I looked up quadruple equation, and I read it about 5 times. You don't really need to know the definition of a quadruple equation. Just know it's something very complicated. But one could intuit the answer, which is bordering on the area covered by faith. Today, science is becoming more metaphysical in its approach when dealing with questions such as mind-boggling quantum double-slit experiments and concepts dealing with quantum entanglement. I know common words that we'll be using at lunch. Of course, all this is based on the natural world and how it functions. In the end, there is an emergent union between religion and science, as each without the other in balance results in the failure of each in isolation. They each need each other to bring the best out in each other. Religion without science devolves to mere superstition, and science without religion becomes callous, sterile, and cold. Any new hypothesis comes into being based on the faith of the investigator and some new insight into nature, making this as close as it gets to metaphysics. The challenge is to back it up with observation and experiment in order to find the facts, to upgrade into a theory, which is in itself proven or disproved with some facts. To some, metaphysics is a bane to science, as this is seen as mysticism and obscurantism, meaning opposing or hindering the stuff of bad religion. Isn't that a great idea, a great way of describing what bad religion is? It's opposing or hindering progressive thoughts. And yet science is now delving into fields once taboo, such as investigating the nature of consciousness, that thing that we're all connected to. Science is exploring it, and I loved how it was really played out and put on the big screen in Avatar, when it showed all of the roots of the trees being interconnected and interwoven. That's the consciousness that connects us all in this collective community that we call humanity. And that humanity of mind is sourced by the one infinite mind. So no idea, no thought, no inspiration, no invention has ever come from a separate mind than that which we are all connected to. And you see, each one of us has a part in enhancing the collective consciousness that we're all connected to here on earth. That's why prayer works, whether I am 10 foot from you or half a planet away. Because we're all collectively connected to the same mind. So that means what is going on in my mind impacts the collective consciousness of the entire race. Now that's hard to have an understanding, but it's having faith in the unseen. So what I just laid out to you is the basis upon what metaphysics has been taught for the last several hundred years. Now does your mind be willingly accept that on blind faith, or through your own study, or through your own understanding? Because it's unseen. I can't see the collective mind. I can't see it. But Phineas Quimby, considered the father of New Thought over 200 years ago, discovered that whether he was praying for somebody a few feet away, or half a continent away, or a continent or two away, termed absentee prayer, that the prayer was just as effective whether the person was a few feet away or on the other side of the earth. So what that says then is for that prayer to be as effective whether they're close or within arm's reach or half a planet away, that means we are all connected by this unseen infinite mind. And that unseen infinite mind is what we are asking ourselves to have faith in, because it's out of the unseen that all healing comes from. So what we've been looking at this year is there something inside of your life, inside of your being, inside of your vessel that needs transforming, which means a complete change? Is there something that we are journeying through this thing called life that is not, that when we practice it, it is not for this thing called our body or our mind or our heart or those around us or our community or our world's highest and best good? Is there something? And maybe it's hard to put your finger on it, the unseen. But what we're being asked today is, can we have faith in the unseen, that it can heal that thing in our life? Is our faith as big as a mustard seed? Faith in the unseen. And I think the best example of how we combine science and religion or metaphysics is we look at the example of Thomas Edison when he went about inventing the commercial light bulb. As I was doing my research on it, you understand, Edison wasn't actually the first one to invent the light bulb. It was actually invented some 60, 70 years prior to him. What he invented was a commercial way of being able to produce the light bulb at an economical level that was practical. Did you all know that? So it was actually put together, just in case I couldn't remember, actually put together by Humphrey Davy, the first electric light in the year 1800. Davy was an English scientist. He experimented with electricity and invented an electric battery. When he connected wires to this battery and a piece of carbon, the carbon glowed, producing the first light. This is called an electric arc. Much later in 1860, scientist Sir Joseph Wilson Swan improved the light, making it more practical and long-lasting. And then along came Edison, who experimented with thousands of different filaments to find just the right material to glow well and be long-lasting. Now, that time that he experimented with thousands of those filaments, on all the different research I found, it's somewhere between 1,000 times and 15,000 times. So there isn't an exact document of how many times that he actually failed in his attempt to invent it. But let's just say at the low end, it was 1,000. How many of us would have complete faith in the unseen, that if I keep doing this, eventually the seen will happen? Do you see, he had to have faith, even though it was very small and very few people in the entire world had the same faith that he did at that moment. You see, when we bring a new idea into this collective mind that we're all connected to, that if another person can't see it, can't embrace it, then it's like seen as what? Lackey. So here's what a young reporter boldly asked Mr. Edison if he felt like a failure. Imagine asking Edison, who invented and is credited with over 1,000 inventions, if he felt like a failure. One of the greatest minds to tap into this unseen consciousness, because he had faith in what he pulled from the unseen, that when it extrapolated or extrapolated and permeated and flowed and whatever it is through his brain, that when it came out, he could believe that it would lead to something good. That's faith. And so, after he asked Edison, do you feel like a failure? And if he thought he should just give up by now, perplexed, Edison replied, young man, why would I feel like a failure? And why would I ever give up? I now know definitively over 9,000 ways that an electric light bulb will not work. Success is almost in my grasp. And shortly after that, and over 10,000 attempts, Edison invented the commercial light bulb that would burn for over 1,500 hours. In Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6, putting those two verses together from the Long's Bible. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and rely not on your own wisdom. In all your ways acknowledge God, and God shall direct your paths." See, Edison wasn't trusting just his wisdom. He was trusting the wisdom that is greater than him, and he had faith in it, that it would help him invent something. And in this case, the light bulb. And he knew that if he kept following it, he would eventually get it right. That's faith. That is faith. How many of us have tried 3 relationships and we've given up on them? We tried 3 times. 3. Edison, 10,000. You got some room to go. We got some area to go. So I looked up and I found this book called One Troublesome Seed by Mary Elizabeth Adam. And this is what she has to say about the mustard seed. It's an incredible little seed. It says, the background on it, of the biology of it, is mustard seeds is among the food family of brassica. Same family as broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and cabbage. Your favorite vegetables, I'm sure. It has unique healing and powerful medicinal properties. The seeds produce condiments with a fragrance and pungency which delighted the world for over 5,000 years. Mustard seeds can grow in any climate, in any season, and anywhere. It neither is nor affected by disease, nor will it die during droughts. It's very resilient. Isn't that a perfect metaphor for faith? See, how many of us want to give up our faith when we have a drought or when there's a disease? We give up our faith. And it comes in 4 colors. Did you know mustard seed came in 4 colors? Brown, black, yellow, and white. What does that sound like? The human race. So it is known as the troublesome seed, for if a planter planted a small percentage of mustard seeds with large quantities of other seeds unknowingly in a field, the mustard seed in due season would take over the entire field eventually. So what's that telling us? If we plant a little seed, regardless of what else is growing in our minds, that faith will eventually what? Overcome any lesser thoughts. When Jesus used the mustard seed, which came in 4 colors, he wanted to show that anyone could have the mustard seed faith, whether they are Asian, Caucasian, Hispanic, black, or any other race. Every person on this earth could possess the properties of this lowly seed. Everyone. And that includes you and me. So I ask you, when you pray for something and you're using faith, do you conceptualize the following in such a way? If I pray for a car, I need my faith to be the size of a car. If I pray for a house, I need my faith to be the size of a house. If I pray to heal cancer, I need the faith of Jesus. If I pray for the mountain to move, I need my faith to be the size of a mountain. Isn't that what we unconsciously visualize in the past when we pray? Have you found it difficult to find the seed of faith in yourself? Have you asked yourself, how am I going to have the faith of God as big as a car, as huge as a house, as unshakable as Jesus, or as enormous as a mountain? Yes, but this is not what the Bible says. We are taught that we only need the faith of a mustard seed to have our prayers answered, our needs met, our path in God revealed, our hope enlightened. This is the miracle of faith of a mustard seed. And sometimes when we're asked to have faith, it's really hard to surrender to what is presented to us in our life. Sometimes we want our faith to be a way that we control how things should be. For all of you that are parents, how many of us have the faith that our kids would come out perfectly normal, what we call normal and healthy? How many of us believe that that's the way that it needs to be? And if it doesn't come out that way, then God can't be working to our highest and best good. I want you to look at this video and see if this doesn't speak to anyone in the room.
In in the world is to raise children. And today, we're paying tribute to fathers who stay at home. But these stories have a twist. We're not honoring just moms today as we normally do. It shows about some very remarkable dads. About 2 million fathers, 2 million, are now staying home with their children while their wives go to work. Hogan Hilling and his wife Tina made this decision 10 years ago when their middle child, Wesley, was born with a genetic disorder called Angelman syndrome. Now, Wesley can never be left alone, and as you will see, his dad is always by his side. Look.
Like every father, you have dreams of this boy, dreams of growing up with your son, and just to sit there and watch my son not develop the way other kids do was very painful. And when someone tells you that your son can't talk and always have the mind of a 2-year-old, it really shattered a lot of dreams I had about the relationship I was going to have with him. And yeah, it hurts. I felt like a part of me was dying. And sometimes I catch myself just driving in silence. Just sitting there driving, and you start really thinking about what's important in life. I've got a boy back there who can't talk. What kind of relationship are you having with your son? Instead of walking with you, I will crawl with you. Instead of focusing on what you cannot do, I will reward you with love for what you can do. Instead of isolating you, I will create adventures for you. Instead of feeling sorry for you, I will respect you. And so, I know someday I'm going to have my special moment with him in a different way that nobody can take away from me. And that's what I'm looking forward to. With Wesley, I began to realize that the father-child relationship is about the soul.
Father-son relationship is about the soul. A little boy has complete faith in his daddy. Because you know why? It never got broke. And you know why I thought that was such a perfect image and visual of what we're trying to share here today on faith? Is that God's faith in us has never been broken. It has never been severed. There's never been a time in our life where we've ever turned to God and opened our hearts and our minds to feel it rush from within, to upwell from the infinite source, that it's ever said, no, I'm not coming, I'm not going to love you, you're not the way that I want you to be. It's always had faith in us. God, the creative essence of all, has never wavered in its faith and its belief in us. We waver in our belief and faith in God. But let us not confuse the two. Just as that little boy knew that his dad will always be there, we know that God is always there for us. And in the times where it is the most trying in our lives, that's when God is the strongest and the most powerful. 1 year ago yesterday, an hour from now, I began a heart attack. My 2 arteries in my heart shut down, 90-95% blockage. And I was standing to Jane Holt at 12:30. I knew when it happened. I was drinking a cup of coffee and bam, it hit. If you've had a heart attack, you know it's not a pleasant thing. This wasn't mild. I think about a year ago when I spoke about it, I think people thought, oh, I must have been having a mild heart attack or something. This was as major as it gets. Complete blockage, basically. And I was in the middle of Free the Heart workshop. And I knew that I had 12 hours to go. And when I shared, I think last year about why I was willing to put myself through that experience, because it took me a couple hours to fully get that I really was having a heart attack. If you never had a heart attack before, you're not really sure. You're thinking, oh, it's just indigestion, some bad sushi from fruit. But when it stayed there and I kept getting worse and worse as the hours passed, if you've ever had one or spoke to someone, ask them if they could have went 12 hours with it. And not only go 12 hours, but be teaching a very experiential, emotionally focused, deep process with 30 other people in the room for 12 hours. And then afterwards, get out, and you know the signs that you see when you leave here? Go out at 11:30 at night when it's raining and load those 4 signs up in the back of your van. And at that point, I knew that I'd had enough. You know what got me through that? And inside, I knew what was happening. Is it was my faith. My faith in that thing that is unseen, but is greater than anything that is going on within me as a human body. And my faith in that was strong enough that I knew I could be focused enough on what I was doing, and that I was strong enough emotionally, mentally, and physically to get through that point. And so when I went home, my wife, who, if you don't know, is a nurse, and whose father has been a doctor for 44 years now, she called him immediately, and he said, oh, you should take him to the hospital. And so when we went, then they started working on me, and you know, within a short time they got it under control and that. But what had kind of like bothered me, but yet I knew that I could trust God, is that according to a doctor of 44 years that's seen many people have heart attacks, that I took myself within an hour of my life. But I was never worried. I was never worried. In fact, asked Crystal, all I want to do is come home and rest. Let me lay here, I'll be all right. Because I know that when I surrendered to being of service to God, 29 years ago now in my life, I knew that God would take care of me. And what I'm sharing and offering to each one of you, and some of you know this perhaps deeper than I do, is that when we surrender and believe in the faith, with faith in God, there's nothing that is impossible. There's no mountains that cannot be moved. And why we want to apply faith to our healing process is if we have something in our life that seems so insurmountable, so large, so big, that we just don't think we can, all you got to do is have a mustard seed worth of faith. And that's all that God needs to move in and have action, for God is omniactive. Meaning it is very active in any part of our being, and there is no area in your life that God cannot move through and bring you to your highest and best good. Just as God moved through the Father in that video. God is moving through us as a center, as we continue to grow in so many different ways. Oh mustard seed, we have faith in you. Let us pray. Turning within to divine cause and effect, to the source of all good, surrendering our attachment to how life should look, how others should be, how life should unfold. We surrender with faith into the knowingness and the higher good of God. That despite how things look at the moment in our current lives or in the affairs of the world, we continue to have faith in our belief in God. And I'm affirming today that that is strengthening minute by minute, breath by breath, thought by thought. And that as it becomes more ingrained, it quickly spreads through all fields of our mind, through our psyche, through our mental, emotional state of well-being, so that we are anchoring the foundation of our thoughts, beliefs, and actions in the field of faith. Knowing that what sources the roots of that plant, of that tree, what sources and causes it to grow is the sun, is the earth, and is the nutrients received through watering, through rain. All of these are caused by the infinite intelligence of spirits, by Mother Nature, sourced by infinite God. And I'm knowing that that same energy that grows a plant, that causes a building to sail, is also moving through us in any areas where at this moment it may seem as if we do not have a lot of faith in another person, in our career, in our finances, in our health, in our emotional, mental status. And I'm knowing right now that that seed of faith is being planted in any and all those areas, growing and fostering a greater belief in God, a greater belief in our attunement to Spirit. And in that attunement, in that Spirit, we are growing and enhancing and developing and strengthening as a community as we collectively come together, joining in consciousness for the sale of this building, knowing that it will add to our community. We give thanks for those people in CSA and for many of you that were a part of CSA that contributed for years to creating that space. We give thanks to Reverend Gail for holding that consciousness and for gifting us with this opportunity as she moves aside so that we can step in and own the consciousness that is needed to attract the perfect buyer. This is good. This is the activity of God moving in all directions beyond our human understanding at times, but making itself available so that we can understand it in these things called human mind. For this and so much more, man, am I grateful to be alive. Am I grateful to be in this center? Am I grateful for each one of you, whether you have stepped into this community for the first time today, or you've been here since the beginning, or somewhere along the line you joined this journey. We are journeying this thing called life together with faith. Man, I give thanks for life. I give thanks for God. And I give thanks for the preciousness of the human heart to love. For this and so much more, will you join me in the completion of this spoken word by simply saying, Amen.